Now, from Austin, Texas, Politics with the Big Dogs, and your host, Anthony Holm.
Hello, hello, hello. This is Anthony Holm, host of Politics with the Big Dogs. Thank you for tuning in, and we have a big dog with us today. We have a good friend, a warrior for liberty, Briscoe Cain, a state representative who happens to be a candidate for U.S. Congress. Briscoe, thank you for joining us on the show today.
Hey, howdy, Anthony. Happy to be on, with the big dogs. I don't know if you've ever seen my height before. I've never really thought of myself as a big dog, but I'll take it.
You are a big dog, I assure you, and I'm so glad you could join us. In fact, we've been trying to get this done for months, long before you announced as a candidate. And one of the problems we had getting it scheduled is you were in all those specials and in the legislative action. So it's a little bit different having a candidate on here, but you're such a warrior for liberty and have been for so long, what you do in your private life and your legal life, that I wanted you to come on and let's talk about Texas. Let's talk about the Constitution. Let's talk about the issues that matter. So thank you. I'll give you a quick intro. 10-year state rep, a lawyer, really, really smart guy, has such a beautiful family. Tell us more about you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, as a person, you discussed family. That would probably be, the biggest, most important part of my life outside of my faith. My wife and I, we just celebrated 14 years of marriage. We have 5 amazing little boys. Our oldest just recently turned 13. They're named Briscoe the Fourth, Walker, Crockett, Maverick, and Hockley, all named after Texas counties. We live in Deer Park. We homeschool our boys. It's an exciting time in life, and one of the great things about kind of our family and that we homeschool is when we're doing this political thing, my family goes with us, right? When we go to Austin, we bring our children with us. And of course, my wife, Burgundy, is really politically active herself. In fact, this last session, she was president of the Legislative Ladies Club. Currently, she's the vice president of finance for the Texas Federation of Republican Women. She actually broke some fundraising records, and right now, as we're recording this, I'm here in San Antonio at the Texas Federation of Republican Women's Convention, and today, it hadn't happened yet, it's expected she'll be elected as the vice president of the organization. So,
bravo!
Kind of thing going on, and so we kind of enjoy it and do it together. I've seen it stress a lot of families out and marriages out when spouses are kind of into it and their spouse isn't, right? It's not their thing. And we just aren't willing to, mess up our marriage or our relationship over this, right? It's not that important. I mean, it's important, but it's not more important than your family.
Of course not. No, wonderful. That's incredible. And that the Cains have an entire birth and are raising an entire basketball team, all of whom are named after counties in Texas.
Miniature basketball team.
Fair enough. Vice President of TFRW, that's a really big deal. And look, you've been a state rep, 10 years?
10 years, 5 terms, yes.
And I honor you for that. You've been one of the most conservative members all the way through and engaged fully in what I define as a constitutional conservative. But I also really want to spend some time on your private life, and private being non-legislative work, because there are lots of lawyers out there. I'm a lawyer. And folks, I will lead with myself. So during COVID, I had a number of people reach out to me, and I really thought I was doing a great service to liberty by helping defend servicemen and government employees and others who didn't want to take the vaccine. But I wasn't filing legal actions, and I thought I was doing an awful lot of good service, and I think I was, and it benefited those people, and we generally got it done. But a couple of years later, then I happened to be at lunch talking to you about it, and holy smokes, I feel so small. So it doesn't matter how tall you are, my brother. Tell us about that. Tell us about the COVID legal actions that you took on, please.
Yeah, COVID was a wild time. I mean, when I think back to it and we're looking at it, we knew we were in kind of a constitutional crisis in a way. There were a lot of things that were unknown, and many of us were like, these executive officers don't either have that authority. We're seeing suspension of law. We're seeing churches close. We're seeing violations of human dignity and liberty and forced vaccinations. And it was one of the downsides of that time is there were a lot of attorneys who knew it was bad and they were afraid to do anything about it, right? They were afraid that someone would look down on them. And we did get some flack from people that you would have thought would have been on your side were actually upset at us wanting to reopen things or allow people to go into public without wearing masks, some of that illogical stuff. And so one of the things I first started out doing was just helping people not be forced to take a jab. I represented a lot of doctors and nurses fighting for their conscious protections during that time period. It was a strange thing. You would have thought maybe you would allow, right, medical experts to make decisions like that, but we were seeing these hospitals not even do that. And then, of course, we had local governments that were doing crazy things. I filed litigation on that and mandamus actions. And we didn't win, sadly, with the Texas Supreme Court. Now, but there were some dissents, and Justice Jimmy Blacklock, right, had written one that said, in a case that I filed, it's called In Re Salon a la Mode, where he said, even during the disaster, the Constitution is not suspended, right? And we'll take that as a win, even though that may be only, able to be used as dicta. That showed that. And then probably the most well-known case would have been Shelley Luther. Prior to her she's a freshman legislator in the Texas House, but most would know her as the Dallas salon owner who was jailed for just really simply trying to earn a living.
Trying to support her family, right?
Yeah.
She wouldn't shut down during COVID. She needed to service people, and she needed to survive. And
all of her employees, right? She runs a salon, and those people wanted to work. And so she was actually, it wasn't really self-interested. She was fine. She was a successful business owner, but the women who worked at that salon weren't, and they needed a job. And so in a way, she was also standing up for other people, which is a role as attorneys and as a public servant. Is our goal is not to be self-serving, but that we're looking out for others. And so that was cool to get her out of jail, to file that habeas corpus and win was a real unique experience.
Oh, that's just incredible. And folks, if you're just joining us, this is Briscoe Cain, a real activist, has been an activist going back to the collegiate years, excellent lawyer who takes on liberty issues. He's a friend of mine, has been a friend and somebody I trust on policy and other thoughtful issues, and now happens to be a candidate for U.S. House in one of the new districts. I'm sure we'll talk about that in a little while. But we are talking about some of the harm and some of the, frankly, the bravery that Briscoe, you exercise. And you made a statement of, there are a lot of lawyers out there, and most of them knew that what was happening was wrong, but nobody had the courage to engage. You did it very publicly. I did it less publicly, but it reminds me of one of my favorite quotes, Mark Twain. Loyalty to petrified opinion never broke a chain or freed a human soul. And I see this across politics generally. I see people who often understand policy and know it's fundamentally flawed, but for whatever reason, go along to get along, don't have the courage to stand up. And I got to say, you're a guy who's shown so much courage. You not only engaged in COVID, which was I'm with you, a constitutional crisis. As I recall, you did a lot of life activities. Tell us about that.
The life one you mentioned, being a campus activist, and if it's okay, we'll start there because it's where it goes.
Absolutely.
It's something relevant right now. We're seeing the issues going on the college campus, but I'll tell you, especially for the listeners, it's not new. It's just now maybe starting to be more prevalent, or people are learning about it. That's been going on for a long time. Now, some of the anti-Semitism is kind of new. The violence is a little new, right? Reminding us of maybe the Vietnam era. But being shut down on campus or being discriminated against for being, openly a person of faith on the campus or a conservative and being willing to speak out and speak against your professors or classmates has been something that's going on for a long time. And so an undergraduate at the University of Houston downtown, I helped launch the College Republicans Club there. That they didn't like that. There was a reason it wasn't on the campus because people had tried it before and eventually they'd run you off.
Isn't that crazy? It wasn't that long ago that you were doing this. You're just not that old, less than 25. I'm not sure how old you are. I'm 53, and I know you're younger than me. So it was less than 25 years ago. And yes, Charlie
we're
Kirk
talking 15 or so. Yes.
Charlie Kirk gets assassinated, and it really raises the attention yet again. But you were there long before this, so I didn't mean to interrupt you. Tell us, U of H.
So we then go into law school, and I find that there at that campus, the Federal Society had gone dormant. There wasn't one. And so when other people should be reading books and prepping and learning how to do law school, my very first semester, we launched the Federal Society, and so I'm president of that. The College Republic, the Law Student Republicans essentially had stopped being used. So we re-upped that, and I run the president of Law Student Republicans. And then, because of what had happened, just an extension of my faith, the reality of what abortion does to humans and to people and how it deteriorates our society, right? That morals and our customs and things, those are downstream of policy. That drives policy, and we're seeing that effect. So we launched the first pro-life law student organization west of the Mississippi, and actually helped Students for Life America, which is the most prominent undergraduate organization for the pro-life movement, actually create Law Students for Life and Medical Students for Life. And that was all in college. So I tabled, and I've had debates, and I'd arranged things. Of course, I had the university sometimes shut it down out of fear of upsetting people or their fragile nature. I eventually, obviously, kind of learned why my grades might have been affected. I wasn't thinking of it then, but, the back of my laptop, right, has like anti-abortion stuff on it, or I had a, Ted Cruz for Senate sticker back then. And you later realize, oh, that's why they were treating me differently. And they know that they're doing that, right? That is on purpose to silence opposition. And in a way, you begin to do that to people in college. They won't do that later in life, right? There really is a goal and a mission. If I can get you to keep your faith secret or yourself or your opinions to yourself early on in college to show you that it's not worth it to be quiet, you'll probably do that at the law firm. You'll probably do that in your private life as well. This is all connected. Absolutely. Indoctrination at the high. I suffered it deeply at UT Law myself. But please continue. So while we're in law school, which comes to the life issue is, and one of the briefs I wrote, or rather a research paper, I wrote it on the idea of bringing civil causes of action against abortionists. Then the idea was to use a principle from Roe v. Wade, which is informed consent, against them, that you haven't informed the woman of these risks and dangers, right? Therefore, we can bring a suit against you. But the whole idea was to bypass the rulings of Roe, especially in Planned Parenthood v. Casey, regarding the burden. All right. So by avoiding legislation and doing it with private actions. Yeah. That was the answer. That's really clever. Eventually, that all came back. And so this is the Texas Heartbeat Act. I'll tell you, maybe we can get into how it and why. Yeah, please. The Dobbs decision. I'm telling you right now, while the Dobbs came out in Mississippi, without the Texas Heartbeat Act, Roe v. Wade would have never been overturned. We'll get to the beginning of that. So I'm in Tyson's Corner outside of D.C., and a man named Tom DeLay walks out of the restaurant. I'm a young kid, dude. This is 2017. And he walks up and says, "Can I sit down?" And I'm starstruck. Yeah, let's go. He has a seat, and I drink a glass of scotch with him. And he begins to tell me a story about this thing called the Heartbeat Bill. He tells me about how the polling of it, when you ask people, if you were to ask people right now, what do you think about 6 weeks? What do you think about these trimester things? They'll give certain answers. If you say, what about when a heartbeat's detected? The numbers go off the roof. People realize there's something human about that. You relate to it. And so we filed the first Texas Heartbeat Act, and didn't go anywhere. And then a friend was contacted another attorney, and they call us. And for the entire summer of 2020, believe it or not, it's 2020 during COVID, Jonathan Mitchell, who's just a brilliant lawyer, he is, myself, start writing the Texas Heartbeat Act. And that's the one that's the civil cause of action that says government cannot enforce the statute. It can only be done by a private citizen, that led to the government's not being able to enjoin it because there's no government enforcement, so there's no way to stop it, and the courts knew they had to do it. And so in about December of 21, when the U.S. Supreme Court essentially denied review and kicked it back to the Texas Supreme Court, and the Texas Supreme Court upheld it, you will find I sent out tweets saying Roe v. Wade is dead. You did. It literally just took another year to show what had just happened. We knew the courts were struggling with it because we found the missing link. We broke the system. They couldn't enjoin it.
That's brilliant.
And so they go, we have to do something about this, or this is about to ignite a fire across the country, and every other state's going to follow it. And so they did what they did, and they returned the issue to the states.
That's incredible. I had glimpses of it, but I didn't, until this moment, understand the depth of it. And I love that it started, at least in part, as a law school research paper.
Yeah. What's really unique is the way, at least for my faith, that God works, is that concept was also put in Jonathan Mitchell's heart. And so when he calls me and we're talking, he goes, how about this? I'm like, it was total confirmation. I was like, yes, that's something that, I did, 10 years ago and have been always thinking was the solution, was the civil court system. Go figure. The civil justice system doesn't require a big government, that allows people to seek a redress of their grievances and go after bad actors. And the more we tend to restrain that ability of people to seek redress of grievances in the civil court system, government grows because it all begins to be statutory.
Sure.
With, some other government actor then doing it on your behalf, which is difficult, right? Because what if they don't want to? What if they don't have the funding? Why not allow the private citizen to also have that alternative option to be able to go after bad actors themselves?
But look, the marketplace has always overcome government's inefficiency. So for the listeners who aren't lawyers, let me just poke something a little bit here. Briscoe Cain just explained quite elegantly why keeping open a court system and allowing people to sue can save lives. Of course, nobody wants a frivolous lawsuit. That's not what I'm advancing here. But I'm a guy who is an injury lawyer, and I'm suing people often who have harmed my clients. And Briscoe Cain and another lawyer designed a legislative angle that ultimately defeated Roe v. Wade at the federal level. And the angle was, government has no role in this. We're going to sue for the harm of the mother and the unborn child. And it was brilliant. And as a state representative, you had to suffer through at least a few sessions of, I'm blanking on his name, speaker from San Antonio, Strauss, who would never entertain or allow legislation like that. And then you filed it, and it took a couple goes. But that's incredible.
Yeah. And then we'll wrap it all up with a bow. So you'll go, well, Cain wasn't the primary author of that. And I'll explain, right? I would say, I'm not just a fighter, that I'm a workhorse. And in the legislature, I believe I've kind of made a name for myself for caring more about good policy, right, than getting credit, which is really, really key. A lot of great ideas get lost in the system or never get passed because somebody's not willing to put the right person on the job. And we knew that and had discussions. And so there was a woman named Shelby Slauson. She's now, I guess, in her third term, a member of the House. And Shelby had filed the heartbeat bill as her first bill. And that was in 21. And I remember being like, I was kind of bothered at first. I was like, that's my thing. and realizing, though, that she found it to be so important. Now, she filed the old version that didn't have the civil cause of action in it. We went and talked. We said, I think you should carry it. Like, you should be the one. Because the right look, she had the right gifts, she had the talent, and she had a heart and a passion for it.
Sure.
And Shelby and Brian Hughes did it and got it across the line, and eventually it overturned Roe v. Wade. And then I've used it to sue people with. And so there's a few active cases right now. I filed the first one back, a few years ago out of Galveston County, but there's still some going on. And you know what?
That's dynamite.
They're not killing babies.
That's right. Listen to that, folks. Through a private civil action, sued somebody to stop abortion, and the courts can't overturn it. Hallelujah. Outcomes matter, not just egos. That has bothered me for 25 and 30 years in this business, that people's egos get so in front of the outcomes that they are unwilling to do what you did. Let a freshman who had the skills and the desire carry a bill that largely you thought of and developed. I don't know.
I wouldn't give myself too much credit, man. I like to think it wasn't me. In my opinion, just as a Christian, I just really feel like that was something the Holy Spirit had kind of helped to all put together, the perfect timing, the right moment, the right people. I just got to kind of be part of it. It's pretty neat.
Well, it's awfully graceful, and it does sound like it might have been a moment of grace at some point I need to come to know Miss Slauson. That's really incredible. That's really incredible. And it came in part out of campus activism, certainly law school research papers. All right. Are there other private actions and similar litigation efforts that you've taken on? If there aren't, no problem.
Yeah, no, I mean, before getting in the legislature, certainly I was pretty quick on it. I mean, one of the very first things, I was a really baby lawyer, at least some people have kind of forgotten it, but the mayor of Houston, the city of Houston, had subpoenaed these pastor sermons. This was the early days of the Texas kind of what we call.
Oh my goodness, that's right. Whoa, sorry, thank you. Tell us.
Yeah, so I get a phone call from a guy named Dave Welch. Dave's since passed. He was the head of the Texas Pastor Council, and he's going, Briscoe, I need a lawyer who's ready to start right now and work for free. I'm that sucker. And part of the message is, hey, other lawyers out there who are people of faith or are conservatives, look, the left does this. Those guys understand that they've got a talent and they can do something about it, and they sue bad actors. We need you, conservative lawyers. You just maybe once every few years, when you see something, step up to the plate and take a swing at it. You have the talent. And so he's like, I need someone to start writing a motion to quash these subpoenas right now. And there was no contract signed. He was like, sure, let's go. And then, the ADF comes in, big boys walk in the room, take over and finish it out. Then a few months later, I was licensed in 2013. I graduated December 2012, licensed 2013. By 2014, I'm representing a group of 5 police officers out of Beaumont. The city had told them they could no longer read their Bible or have essentially a Bible study and pray together on their lunch break.
That's incredible. How ridiculous.
Easy win, easy slap down. What a bunch of morons.
Well, hold on. I'm going to intervene because it may have been easy, but it was essential. Because for every Beaumont group of 5 police officers who have the gumption to call a lawyer and a lawyer steps up and engages, there must be 50 others who are somehow barred or inhibited. And I also want to say, if you're just joining us, this is Briscoe Cain, a warrior for freedom, a 10-year state representative who has now is running for Congress, actually, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about the advancement of liberty and his beliefs, and perhaps what is most important is how he and his wife are raising 5 children 5 boys under the age of 13. But at this portion of it, we're talking about how he has used the private civil action space, lawsuits, to advance liberty and to defend right now 5 police officers in Beaumont who were barred from having Bible study on their lunch break. So please continue.
Anthony, if people just join, they should back up a little bit and hear where you were going, because it's a lot of it. We wouldn't know if the person whose liberty was violated didn't call us. We would have never been able to do something about that. So really the true heroes in these stories are those who come forward, right? They're true heroes.
And hold on, if you think your liberty is violated, go to politicswiththebigdogs.com and send me a note. Load it up. I'll forward it to Briscoe. Yes, he's a congressional candidate, but he and I and the Jonathan Mitchells of the world will start looking at it. And if we can't help you, we'll find you somebody who can, almost certainly. Politicswiththebigdogs.com, you can put it in there, and I'll do everything I can to aid. Thank you for. Please continue.
Right. So those are the real heroes. I mean, another one was a woman named Madeline Kirksey. Madeline contacts us, and she had just been fired from a school for refusing to call a 4-year-old boy by a girl's name, as his 2 moms demanded. Had she not done that, and that's 2015, that stuff wasn't going on. No one knew about it.
Sure.
And now it's such commonplace. But how many people have been silenced? I mean, because you don't want to get fired. Not many people have the ability to go, I'll get another job. That's too much for folks. And so many are silent. But there are heroes out there that are willing to do something. But I would remind people, there's protections for that. Some people don't realize, like, that would be a form of discrimination if they were to let you go for blowing a whistle on something that's criminal.
Sure.
And so, hey, before you do it, though, feel free to, give Anthony or myself a call, or the Alliance Defending Freedom or Forced Liberty. There's a lot of great groups out there, Pacific Justice Institute. There's some great ones. But, don't be afraid, because we can't help you if you don't let us know about it. But that's why we know what's going on in our schools, right? It was moms and parents and teachers who were willing to speak up against these things. So, yeah,
Hey, I learned, and I'm a pretty engaged person in our society. I learned that we were transitioning little children through Mr. Younger's tragic situation, where he had the courage to come forward and say, hey, my wife, who's a pediatrician or ex-wife now, is telling I believe it was a 6-year-old little boy at the time, you're really a girl, aren't you? And monsters, they only come for the boys, not the girls. Mommy tells me I'm a girl. And then the residents of the Metroplex somewhere, I'm going from memory, she tries to take that boy to California because California had been an open trans protection, jurisdiction, and start puberty blockers and everything else of transitioning this little boy, indoctrinating him and transitioning from a boy to a girl. And number one, I had no idea that something that I believe just fundamentally insane and abusive and criminal. And I'm running on a premise that no 6-year-old thinks that they're not a little boy when they were born a boy unless an adult intervenes and suggests that to them, right?
There's no doubt. Look,
it's crazy.
Yeah. There's certain demographics where it's higher in, right? When we look at the children of some of these famous actors, like, why is there a high propensity in that? Because you're around weird people doing weird things to your kids, socially transitioning them and medically transitioning them. And I'll say it was kind of neat to be in the legislature when we tackle those issues.
Yeah, and Younger went to the Texas Supreme Court. They didn't do anything about it or couldn't do anything about it. You guys had to go and pass a law. It never occurred to me 20 years ago that we needed this type of law, right? I had no idea that hospitals were engaging in this conduct or parents. I mean, it's just much like I'm not thinking about aliens landing at our, come on.
Until I had a case on it, it was a foreign concept to me as well. Now of course it's been in the news and people know about it, and some people still, I think it's not real. This is absolutely real, and it's on a large scale by these woke people. Also, though, by the medical tyrants, the doctors who are willing to do this.
Oh,
they're the same ones who are also willing to do the medical tyranny during COVID. That's that God complex. They're also just sick people. Let's just be real what it is. They should all go to prison. Now, we'll back up with it, though. It's Circuit 21. I think the boys and girls sports thing, that's a big issue.
Sure.
We passed a bill in the legislature. Representative Valerie Swanson took the lead on that one, and that was to stop that in high schools. But, of course, there were still these issues in colleges. And the reason we didn't stop it, I'll be frank with it, there were a lot of people who took these threats from the NCAA as if they would remove their tournaments if we did this. They were afraid of it. Eventually, I think it was South Carolina that did it anyways, and the NCAA essentially was shown that the threat wasn't legitimate, and so Texas finally, got it done, I believe in 2023. But still, we had to stop it, the social transitioning of children, which is something we stopped in 2025, which is while we had banned the medical transitioning of kids in 2023, there was something called the social transition. No one even realized, right, that the child's mind is kind of Play-Doh. And if I can screw them up in the head and make them question what they are, whether they're a furry, which is also something we had a freaking ban in Texas. Who knew that? That was actually happening, where teachers were allowing kids to think they're animals.
And dress like animals and eat like animals, and in some instances, my understanding is go to the restroom like animals. If you're just joining us, I know that might be an odd few sentences. This is Anthony Holm, host of Politics with the Big Dogs. Thank you for tuning in. We're talking to Briscoe Cain, a real lover of liberty, an activist for decades, an attorney, a state representative, and there's some crazy stuff going on in the world and in Texas that I would never have expected, from gender transitioning of young kids to even some public schools insisting that their young students, hey, you're Fido and you get to act like Fido.
Yeah. So, and what does that all really mean, though, right? I think it's all connected, in my opinion. It's really about killing the individual. Because if there's any key principle to Western philosophy, to the U.S. Constitution, it's about the individual. And then if we protect the rights of the individual, we protect the humanity of the individual, if we guard that, then the rest of society thrives. It's a similar principle to the free market.
Yes,
which
agreed.
a person pursuing their own self-interest creates a product because they were being selfish that helps their fellow man wants to buy it, but they're actually looking out for themselves. And it's by protecting and uplifting the individual that we're able to do the best for society. And the complete opposite concept of the socialist, the humanist, and the communist, which have nothing to do with the individual. And is the more we remove that concept and make it about some greater good, we are going to continue to go down the wrong path. But also in all of that with the woke schools, we then also have that, but it's also don't tell your parents, right? We have a revolution going on right now. We're seeing mad moms and dads start to flip school boards. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I think we have the wind to our back. The radical left went too freaking far. And people have woken up, and they've woken up a giant, right? I wouldn't say that the assassination of Charlie Kirk started it, but it certainly was a spark, right?
Big spotlight at the very least.
Yeah, I can't blame them. Again, we've talked about the silence. People were just, the left is bullies, right? And name callers. They're thugs and thieves, and now they're assassins. It's not hard to blame somebody for going, hey, I don't want to do that, because look, they tried to kill the president. They assassinated a leader of the movement of campuses and of religious liberty, and somebody willing to debate and say that what the left was teaching in our schools and our TVs was wrong.
They've petitioned, they just inundated employers so folks lose their job for speaking out about liberty and freedom. Obama's unleashed the IRS on anybody who had Patriot associated with them or Tea Party. Lois Lerner pled the fifth, the lady who was leading it inside the IRS. I mean, so many of us have had the IRS come down on us for this nonsensical. Period. I know a lot of targeting. So
yeah.
Look,
I think we're seeing a revival of bold Christian conservative warriors who are unafraid to speak the truth and to fight the woke mind virus that's trying to destroy this country. I'm excited, actually. I think, maybe it's just want to be an optimist, but I believe that America's best years are ahead of her. Well
said. And you were the Judeo-Christian warrior for liberty before it was cool. So kudos to you. All right, let's talk a little bit about you're running for Congress again. Anthony Holm hosts Politics with the Big Dogs. We have Briscoe Cain, 10-year state representative, advocate for freedom, constitutionalist at his core. I've learned a lot from him over the years. I asked you to come on the show. We started talking about this months ago, and then there was a redistricting event. And in fact, we had to reschedule a couple different times, and a number of districts were modified, and now you're a candidate for U.S. Congress in one of those new districts. Tell us why you want to go to Congress and what you want to do.
I'd say I was proud to lead on the president's election integrity legislation in 2021. I was following the crazy stuff that happened in 2020. I became chairman of the elections committee, led on that legislation. That was the one, if anyone recalls, when the Democrats broke quorum and ran off to D.C. to complain about.
That's right.
We were trying to make it harder to cheat, easier to vote. They didn't like that and ran off. But before that, when the president's team in Pennsylvania needed some attorneys to go and help, heck, we bought a plane ticket and flew out there with some buddies. And we're actually, it was 5 Texas lawyers, all millennials, 3 New York guys, all young millennials, again, no kidding, that came up with what became the Mike Kelly case that went to the U.S. Supreme Court. Now,
that's incredible.
Really lost because the relief we were asking for was to throw out all the ballots. But it was the point was they violated their own state constitution when they allowed universal mail-in balloting, which certainly changed the outcome of that election. There was, of course, a lot of other fraud that was revealed, and so the things I learned, we brought back to Texas and wrote, the strongest election integrity legislation we've ever had that helped inspire other states. And so I got to do that. That was really, really, really cool.
Hold on, because I'm sorry, I had forgotten that, or I would have asked you about it. I'm so glad you brought it up. Now, folks, most of you will be aware and remember a few months ago when the Democrats fled. They fled Texas because they were unwilling to stand for their constitutional duty to vote on an election map, on a redistricting map. But what I had forgotten, and I'm thankful that you brought it up, Briscoe, is that just a few years prior, they also fled Texas to try to stop a bill they disagreed with. But it was your bill. You were the author of that bill. And remember, folks, we had so much fraud in our elections. Well, Briscoe tackled that as chair of elections. You went and you wrote a bill that is now law to make it easier to vote and harder to cheat. And when the Democrats saw what the bill did, that it actually would improve the security of our elections, they fled the state rather than vote on it. That's incredible.
Yeah.
You were so far ahead of the
world. We did have a civil cause of action in there, and eventually some people got mad and made it go away.
The free market solution. I appreciate
and it's still the solution. Hopefully we can get it done. Someone needs to do it. I won't be there. Maybe another state could, which was a civil cause of action against ballot traffickers. So when the crime levels are so low, the traffickers will just plea out. They'd rather do a year in jail or pay a fine than turn on the cartel or whoever, the big dog, right? It's just not worth someone's family member getting killed. This really does happen in the Valley. And so if there was a way to civilly sue them right now, because I'll remind you there was the Court of Criminal Appeals case that took away the Attorney General's ability to prosecute election crimes.
Yep.
And so because you're having to deal with these local DAs who aren't want to do it because, of course, they're, on the take, or the county folks, a civil cause of action could be an answer. So, hey, it's something I still think needs to be done.
Agreed. And folks, I want to put a little color on that. So as a reminder, these vote harvesters in San Antonio and South, more often than not, but other locations as well, they go around and they illegally pick up all of these ballots, or they just create fraudulent, older people. We've gotten this on video. We have busted this top to bottom. It's incredibly hard to catch and prosecute, but we've gotten some on video, and it still hasn't been prosecuted. So what Briscoe was trying to do was like, hey, give us a private cause of action. We'll sue them for damages.
Like if I can make you think you're about to go bankrupt and pay $100,000, you're going to start talking.
Yeah, and
because
these
if it's
DAs,
a low-level misdemeanor, they'll just pay the fine. They're not going to talk on somebody. But when you realize this is going to bankrupt you, it was them.
Makes a ton of sense. So these DAs won't go and prosecute it, and they won't let the Attorney General, Paxton, go and prosecute it. And the CCA court, the highest court in the criminal side, barred him from doing so. That's a very clever, go figure, free market approach to stopping harm, crime, and civil harm in Texas.
And so, it's and
so you're running.
There's these discussions of needing a border wall, but it wasn't working for Congress. They weren't really doing it. We're having trouble, and so I filed a bill going, hey, why doesn't Texas build its own wall? That was the concept, and that's the support from the governor, and so we were the first to do that. Eventually, we kind of took hold of Congress, and things started to move. But some of that principle is realizing, hey, the states can do some of these things. All too often, people were waiting for D.C. to do something. And you know what? You probably have the ability to do it yourself. At least only a few of us have the ability to do that, right? There's not many border states. So, Louisiana, don't go building a wall. That'd be weird. But it was something we could do ourselves. And we started doing that in a very clever way, which was that there's also flood mitigation needs to be done down the Rio Grande.
Right. That's brilliant.
I need these really big concrete wall things to stop that water from flooding over. And that was one, kind of a backdoor trick way that we started to construct our own kind of border wall.
Love what you're hearing? Find all of our shows at politicswiththebigdogs.com. Subscribe to our newsletter and send in your questions. politicswiththebigdogs.com.
When you're hurt by a semi-truck driver who can't read or speak English, juries have a right to know. That's the law in Texas. But Representative Jeff Leach tried to change the law to protect truck drivers who don't speak English. Leach wants to stop the driver's inability to read or speak our language from automatically going to the jury, going against orders from President Trump and Governor Abbott. Call Representative Leach. Ask him why he's protecting foreign truckers instead of us.
Welcome back. I'm your host, Anthony Holm. This is Politics with the Big Dog. Okay, this leads me to something that I've most appreciated about you the entire time I've known you. Your philosophy of government, and rarely do I meet other people who are so enmeshed in the founding principles of our nation and the republic and the power of the states if anybody will sit down and read the Constitution and its supporting documents in the Federalist Papers, you learn very clearly that the intention was, and the structure in theory at least is, that the states are independent actors and generally regulating their citizenry with just some limitations or oversight by the federal government. It's not become that in practice, but tell us how you came to that realization. Oh, I don't want to mischaracterize anything you've come to. Give us your thoughts on that.
Right. It would certainly come from at some point, it was actually talk radio that kind of really helped reach me. I had a grandfather that started getting me to listen to guys like Dennis Prager. When I'm in my, gosh, it sounds really dorky, like 21, 22 years old, I'm subscribing to Imprimis by Hillsdale. That Dave got me to do. And so that really helped kind of shape my focus on it. But it is really simple. If you just go read that document, you understand that the federal government, the United States, it's even in the name, by the way, right? We're not America. We are the United States of America. Hello.
States United, equal, and
states agreed to come together, right? To go, hey, the Articles of Confederation weren't working. We weren't really working together. Let's unite. But it's still all about the states. And some who are going, hey, well, the state doesn't like it when the feds tell them what to do. Why do you think it's okay for the state to tell locals what to do? Because the federal government is a creature of the creation of the states, and local government is a creature of the creation of the state. The state is the sovereign governmental entity. Of course, it's the people who are sovereign, but in delegating their powers, they delegated it through their state constitutions, which existed long before the federal and inspired the federal and created the federal government. Again, it is all about the states. The states have that power, and they have to take it back and stop ceding their authority to the federal government.
Couldn't agree more, my friend. Look, on this show, Politics with the Big Dogs, we organize thoughts and people into action. And if you're just tuning in for the last part of the show, this is Briscoe Cain, a brilliant attorney, private sector attorney, 10-year state rep, a great dad. They're raising 5 boys, under 13 and under, he and his wife, and homeschooling. And now he's a candidate for Congress. And if you're elected Congress, I'm sure you will serve Texas well, my friend. No doubt about that. So as we start to wrap up, what do you want to attack at the federal level if you're elected?
Mm-hmm. Well, they said right now I'm running for Congress to partner with President Trump to fulfill his promises to the American people. So first and foremost, right, that is our priority. And the seat we're running in is what we call the new 9th congressional district. This was Al Green's. You could say that Al Green will never again shake his cane at President Trump because we've essentially drawn his district into a 60% Republican seat. So just to maybe give you a background on it, we're having that redistricting. The Democrats break quorum, and we're drawing 5 new Republican seats. That's all about, right, the midterms are coming. We know historically what occurs in midterms. The entire idea is to hold the House, right? Sure. If just because we have President Trump, we lose the House, all of the work we've been doing to drain the swamp and fight back against the deep state and start to restore some of the order of things will just be a wash. It'll go away because government moves at a snail's pace, and we need the time. So we got 5 new seats. Democrats break quorum. What's even better is we made the seats worse for them. The 9th district was once a 57% Republican, and came back, and it was made even better. It became a 60. And so sometimes when they break quorum, they kind of come back, and there's a negotiation to kind of get what they want. Not this time. It got worse. We made these even big, more beautiful maps. And so the new 9th is no longer Al Green's seat. It's now MAGA country. And it's located where I was born and raised. I grew up in the shadow of the San Jacinto Monument to parents who worked at the refineries there. This is the port of Houston. It's the biggest energy exporting port in the country. We're going through a project right now called Project 11 that's deepening and widening it. We're going to see double the export out of Houston within the next 4 or 5 years. And that's because of our climate here in Texas, our regulations. We don't have powerful labor unions like you see in California and Long Beach that had those shutdowns. And so people are going, hey, we need places to ship our goods. We want to get into market. Texas is, centrally located in the United States. We've got this amazing thing when you poke holes in the ground in our state, this black stuff comes up that has changed the entire world. Plastics aren't evil, people. Like, this is the greatest thing ever. That has revolutionized everything and made the combustion engine even be able to work. It's all coming from Houston. we're continuing to just do great things. And so that's what the Houston Ship Channel and the port means to me. These are blue collar folks. These are people that I grew up with. These are my parents' friends. I am kind of very protective of it. It may not be pretty, and sometimes maybe,
gets a bad rap, yeah.
You get a little bad rap. I mean, people don't like our flares, but I'll tell you, there's dolphins in the ship channel, right? You see, it is cleaned up, but it provides great jobs for guys like my dad, who found himself homeless at 16 and finished high school on his own, and right, he was a single dad for a long time when I was a kid. I grew up with him. My dad raised me until he remarried. But if it hadn't been for these jobs, he wouldn't be able to buy me my first car. I mean, that's cool. Not a lot of parents can do that. But thankfully for the refinery area is what allows people in that area to have maybe a better standard of living than their other counterparts who may not have that level of education. So I care a lot about it. I'm not a fan of the Green New Deal, and I really don't like people criticizing our oil and gas industry.
No, I'm right there with you. It employs so many, and particularly in that area, they're good jobs. They're high-paying jobs. It's hard work. But that is good America. And for the folks old like me, that's urban cowboy. Just straight up urban cowboy.
If you ever come by my Capitol office, you'll see some of those posters. Now, of course, Gilley's had since burned by the time I came of age to whether I was 21 or 18 to sneak into a bar. That was too late. But Mickey Gilley's partner, a guy named Sherwood Cryer, had a place over by my house called G's Ice House. And Sherwood was part of the creation of the Mechanical Bull, by the way. And so we go and be kind of
fun.
Do some mechanical bull riding. These were dangerous. The old ones,
oh yeah,
not safe at all. Like some belt-driven kind of sketchy mechanical bulls. But anyway, that was my upbringing, was around that for sure.
Well, I didn't know that about you, and I bet you didn't know this. I actually rode bulls in San Antonio in high school, and
you wish you hadn't.
No, I do. I didn't do it
Everyone's
much.
like back and all the pains. It was a bad idea. It was really cool. It was a great way to meet chicks, and it was fun with your friends.
Oh my goodness, it was painful. It was humbling. I didn't do it often. I was smart enough to stop.
There's only a few guys that make any money, and maybe that makes it worth it. But if you're making any money, you're just beating your body up.
Oh man, something else. Hey, this is incredible. Thank you for this. Thank you for now the district. It's the Ship Channel to where? Tell us the area.
Yeah. So it's my community. It's where I grew up. This is it's the Houston Ship Channel, essentially East Harris County, an area I've represented for a decade, plus Liberty County.
Okay, so, and Liberty.
That's
a good name. Hey, that's an appropriate county for you to represent. I hope it works out for you, and I think it's a crowded field, but you would serve Texas well.
Yeah, I'd say we have a good start, having represented such a large portion of it for a decade, being the only candidate in the race with any legislative background, right? So when I go to D.C., there's not some major learning curve. I understand how the process works. I've been an expert in the rules of parliamentary procedure in the House. Now the rules are certainly different there in D.C. I understand these concepts, but also I get how to get it done, which again goes back to understanding that it's about the policy, not about you. It's about being part of a team. Of bringing something to the table. And so I've learned from that. And I'll tell you, hey, my freshman session, I didn't know that. I went in ready to just burn the place down, and I was angry and mad, and you quickly realize the government doesn't move the way you wish it would, and so you've got to learn the process and work from within it. And when you do, you can be quite successful and move the ball. I think we've moved the Overton window many times. This session alone, with the a large group of reformer Republicans that have come in, move the Overton window, and I'll tell you, and some people laugh, it was again the most conservative session we've ever had.
No, I believe that fervently. Period. And I've never we had Mitch Little on the show not too long ago. I told him something to the effect I still stand by. I've not seen a group of freshmen impact policy outcomes, not just the chamber, but actual laws, policy outcomes that are embedded in law in the 30-ish years that I've been around. So I went to UT.
Yeah.
I was in college Republicans. I worked in the legislature in the 93 session, maybe even the 91. I don't think so, but 1993 to the present, I've been a pretty informed observer. Hey, I want to ask you about something. You might not be familiar with it, but I trust your legal mind, and the listeners have heard me talk about the Gregory decision and specifically values. So in the space that I work, which is injury law, the Texas Supreme Court came out with a ruling, a holding that said it is reversible error, improper, which means, in non-legal terms, that it's illegal.
Can't do it.
For a witness or a party or anybody to describe their injury in terms of values. Well, facially, when I heard that initially, I thought, well, okay, that's an odd way to describe an injury. And then it took me a little while. I was like, well, wait a second. So if a drunk 18-wheeler driver hits my wife, who's full term, and we lose the baby, she can't say, you don't understand, my religious values have caused me so much harm because you took life. Or anything similar, or family values. It's against my family values. I'm in a wheelchair. I can no longer be with my wife. The harm that is caused, or community values. So I was struck by that. Are you familiar at all with that holding?
Yeah, a little bit. I've read some of it on, I guess, on your socials. It's odd. And let's think about it. What else is like the loss of consortium? You can Google that, folks, if you want, if you're not familiar with it, or any of these other kind of things, but actually an extension of human values. Oh, well, and so values are already embedded in our law. To say you can't talk about values is kind of funny. Where else do these concepts come from? Where does our ban on usury laws come from? It comes from the Torah. Like, all of this comes from religion and our faith, and to say that you can't have values be part of it is silly. And let's go back to what's the purpose of our Constitution, our system of laws. But what is it? It's to defend the liberty of the individual.
Where you started. Well done.
And the individual may be unique, and their values may be unique, but that is the entire idea. And so just because everyone doesn't share those values, which may be part of the argument of the court, so it's odd. So it's like, inequitable remedies. Yeah, but you're unique, and therefore we can't have some doctrine for that. But that's the entire idea of our system of laws, is recognizing the uniqueness of every individual, and that we should be protecting their liberties.
Thank you. Folks, this is Briscoe Cain. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving us the time. God bless you. God bless Texas, and we wish you all the luck, sir.
Thanks so much.
Our guest today on Politics with the Big Dogs was Texas State Representative Briscoe Cain. Briscoe Cain's current State House district includes Deer Park, LaPorte, and Crosby in eastern Harris County. Learn more about Briscoe Cain at briscoecain.com. That's spelled BRISCOECAIN.com.
When you're hurt by a semi-truck driver who can't read or speak English, juries have a right to know. That's the law in Texas. But Representative Jeff Leach tried to change the law to protect truck drivers who don't speak English. Leach wants to stop the driver's inability to read or speak our language from automatically going to the jury, going against orders from President Trump and Governor Abbott. Call Representative Leach. Ask him why he's protecting foreign truckers instead of us.
Politics with the Big Dogs is brought to you by the First Amendment Alliance Education Fund, whose mission is to educate Americans on their rights and advocating for liberty. Politics with the Big Dogs is heard on great radio stations across Texas. Listen to previous episodes of Politics with the Big Dogs online at politicswiththebigdogs.com. Sign up for our newsletter. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Truth Social for breaking news, opinions, and news that affects your rights as a Texan and as an American. Have a question for Anthony Holm? Have a suggestion for a topic or guest you'd like to hear from? Email Anthony at politicswiththebigdogs.com. That's Anthony at politicswiththebigdogs.com. Thank you for your patriotism, for your love of liberty and freedom, and for supporting our mission. politicswiththebigdogs.com.